In the opening months of 2013, the first national 24-hour Aboriginal Australian TV networks were launched, representing two distinct Indigenous media models aimed at communicating with the general public. High production value urban programming versus grassroots remote community footage. These channels represent less than 3% of the total population, and yet have received 2 of the 25 desirable slots on the national satellite network that is newly capable of reaching all of Australia, including every remote Aboriginal household. To put this into perspective, this is analogous to the almost unthinkable parallel scenario of every U.S. household suddenly receiving 2 24-hour Native American TV channels through basic cable, broadly representing reservation and urban perspectives. No academic has yet studied the unprecedented emergence of multiple national Indigenous media models. By capturing the current historical moment through anthropological methods of participant observation, interviews, surveys, and archival research, I seek to illuminate global debates on the potential of Indigenous media in the digital age. While the rise of Aboriginal mass media networks suggests an increasing recognition of diverse Indigenous perspectives, such optimism is tempered by the exclusion of Aboriginals from national conversations on Australia's changing demographics. For example, Australian multiculturalism was the cover story of a Time magazine article this summer, titled "We Are Australia, the True Face of the Lucky Country." And yet, Aboriginals were referenced only in the first paragraph in relation to initial colonial contact. Even though they are the fastest growing non-immigrant segment of the population, they continue to be depicted as relics of the past, rather than contemporary Australians. I will study 2 Indigenous media organizations that closely map onto and disproportionately contribute to these 2 national Aboriginal networks. Participating in every step of media production at both outlets, I will systematically follow a variety of video projects over 18 months, from initial idea through reception, to understand the extent to which these 2 media models are effective in producing, circulating, and communicating different visions of indigeneity. I am ideally positioned to carry out this timely research, having completed 3 summer pilot studies with these outlets, totaling 6 months, in which I volunteered on media projects in urban and remote settings. I developed my ability to speak the regional Creole Aboriginal second language, tested my methodology, and received all local project approvals. In addition, I have significant experience in video production and have completed the CU-IRB process. Rather than simply analyzing completed videos, I seek to understand the daily human, bureaucratic, and technological processes through which these media programs come into being. With high levels of media productivity and success in Aboriginal activism and land rights, the Kimberley region in northwestern Australia provides an ideal backdrop for revealing the relevant stakes of these representations. Namely, I seek to understand to what ends media workers endeavor to make programs that are at once locally relevant, politically salient, activist-oriented, financially viable, and appealing to a diverse audience. Indigenous mass media is perceived by many Aboriginals as an opportunity to influence national discourse to further their collective rights. These networks align with the recent international shift toward understanding Indigenous media as a human right, solidified in Article 16 of the 2008 United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Indeed, the prospects for Aboriginal people to improve third world material conditions hinges on their ability to foster national dialogues that expand Indigenous identity spaces beyond stereotypes. My project will critically inform current debates in the social sciences on the extent to which Indigenous media can effectively communicate to broader audiences. Beyond academic dissemination, I will write policy papers on the social impacts of Indigenous media to help increase national funding levels. My results will also be instructive for Indigenous peoples around the world who hope to learn from and to emulate these Indigenous mass media. Thank you.
Question? what implications you think you already see for, what implications your research has for indigenous populations here in the Americas?
So one of the things I mentioned is it's unimaginable that the U.S. would have such a scenario. Canada has one channel. And I think that what you see is a real connection between political activism and a variety of complex representations on the television and the radio. In the region that I'm working in, it has the highest multiculturalism, ethnic diversity of the entire country. And yet you would expect that to go along with really ineffective political activism for Aboriginal peoples. And yet what you find is exactly what you don't expect and what you don't find in cities, which is where they have the only land rights that encompasses the actual town center. And they've defeated multinational oil corporations. And so you really see that when areas, cities, remote communities, and nations have much more effective indigenous media, you see a direct correlation with success in activism and land rights.
Thank you, Ray. Next up, we have Melissa